With us now is our good friend, longtime friend of the show, political consultant Tony Cignoli, who has not slept very much in a long time, working on a lot of campaigns. Good to have you with us, sir. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Massachusetts governor's race, so close. Last numbers we were just looking at a little while ago, 40,040 votes give it to Charlie. But what an amazing number it comes down to. Martha Coakley concedes 8:15 this morning in a phone call to Charlie Baker. He had given really a very gracious speech about 1:30 last night, where he sort of claimed victory, but said, Martha Coakley wants till the morning. That's fine. We'll let her have that. We'll talk then. What's your sense of what that race turned on?
You know, so much was that last and that final undecided that Martha Coakley had so much difficulty moving those undecideds in those remaining polls, who were largely women, 60% of whom were women, unenrolled, independent voters. That difficulty that she had of just being able to convince them of one key thing that we saw in the crosstabs. Women were saying, Martha, I need to know that you can fight for me, that you'll advocate for me. I know you're with me on these issues. I know we agree, but I need to feel that fight. It just wasn't happening. And she did close the gap greatly. But like Vince Lombardi would say, all the time you get in the game is all the time you get. When the buzzer goes off, that's it. Folks could say another week or whatever. It was moving in her direction. She just didn't get to it hard enough and fast enough and wasn't germane enough to those issues for those particular voters.
Tony, as you know, ballot question 4, which won big time to guarantee sick time to Massachusetts workers, in part that was put on there by liberal Democrats, by their labor supporters, the Service Employees International Union, the idea being not just to get sick time for workers, but to try and bring out the workers, lower paid folks, in many cases minority workers. And if they come out and vote for that, pretty good chance they'll stay and vote for other Democrats down the line. Did that, do you think, help bring Martha Coakley as close as she came?
It would have been worse without that question, and it would have been worse in one other regard, too, if not for the strong, organized labor base of Springfield, of Worcester, of Boston. When you look at the SEI union, that's one of the stories I'm hearing so much about in Boston, not just in Boston, but in Springfield. Look at her numbers. In each one of those municipalities, she won big. But as John Walsh shared with me early last night, before all was said and done, gosh, the numbers have just come out of Springfield. We talked about it a little bit, and it was as simplistic as him saying, that's just not enough, though. She just wasn't able to grab enough. Without that question now, without a variety of other factors, it would have been a bigger margin for Charlie Baker. The voter ID, get out the vote, the apparatus of the Democratic Party, of organized labor, helped her greatly. But for the first time in a long time, we saw a Republican, Baker, who had a similar apparatus, did his own thing, didn't rely on the Republican State Committee. And I think that was one of the great challenges that Martha had also.
The Democrats retain significant control of both the State House of Representatives and the State Senate. I believe Republicans have gained 2 state Senate seats for sure, and I think there might be 1 or 2 still in play, waiting for final numbers, and a few seats in the House. I think they're going to be up somewhere around 35, 36 members out of 160. They still can't sustain a gubernatorial veto in either house, but they've got a little more strength. What does that say in terms of how Charlie Baker, he's got a deal with a very smart, tough speaker and a incoming smart, liberal Western Massachusetts Senate President, Stan Rosenberg.
Brilliant player, Stan Rosenberg. And with Rosenberg, there's his opportunity. Here's a guy who knows how to play it with insider aplomb and is an insider, but plays it with an outsider's panache, just being from Western Mass, being from Amherst, and as you say, liberal and progressive. I think, how does he play this? You know, just take a look at who was sitting closest to him after his daughter and his wife last night as we were waiting for the results. William Weld. He plays it just like Bill Weld. You got to find a way to reach across. You got to be likable. You got to play the Tip O'Neill, Ronald Reagan card here, and you got to be affable and likable. You got to find things that the House Speaker wants and needs. And on those Mondays, when the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, and the Governor gets together, you've got to actually show up at those things and cut those deals and give them what they want and what they need.
Was this win, again, and the increase, especially in Republicans in the legislature, small as it is, but still a real increase, was this just a case of a good, strong Republican candidate at the top for governor with a little bit of coattails and a bad night for Democrats in general? Or are we really seeing, do you think, some resurgence of the Republican Party in the Commonwealth?
I think you're seeing a little bit of a resurgence of something else, of folks who are independent in Massachusetts saying, I'm not satisfied with the way things are. I'm not satisfied with status quo. And it's not a Republican or a Democratic argument. It's the argument that Eric Lesser made and won in his seat. But it's also the argument that Don Humison made when he first ran for the Senate and re-won the Senate last night. Resurgency, not exactly, but I think with Evan Falchuk now having that 3% and creating an independent party, watch those legislative races next time out where there are Democrats who might not want to run as a D. They'll look to the eye. And we're seeing one other thing. Big change. Worcester County is Republican. It is Tea Party. The Senate President Pro Tem, the race that we all watch, Dick Moore, a fabled name in Democratic politics, a guy who was to the right of right on issues, conservative. He got clocked in Worcester County. That's where the change is coming. And it's starting to spread out of Worcester County, more so west than east.
Not to take anything away from Governor-elect Charlie Baker, give him his due, it's his day. Seems to me, though, the breakout star of this election season here in Massachusetts is the Attorney General-elect Maura Healey. Came out of nowhere, beat a better-known Democratic opponent in the primary, Warren Tolman, and went on to just walk to a victory in the general election. What's your sense of who she is, who she's going to be?
She's going to be tough. She's going to be aggressive. She's incredibly energetic. She's humbled to have won. To see what she did in the primary is the amazing thing. Winning the general is one thing, but winning the primary against the player, Warren Tolman, whose brother was Tolman, the head of the AFL-CIO. Organized labor turned out, but many of them voted for Maura Healey. She connected with them. And more so, she connected across the board with women and with moms. You know, in all walks of life, she made folks believe that she recognized what their issues were that were important. And also, though she's a progressive and a liberal, she played the top cop piece. It's almost as if she took some pages from Mike Ash. You know, yes, you can be sensitive on issues. You can be progressive. On the other hand, though, you got to get the job you're elected done. And she talked about things like that, keeping utility rates, keeping the utility companies and rate hikes, you know, what they should be. You know, going after some of the big guys that are out there that the average public is frightened of. That's what we look to the Attorney General to do. And she closed that deal and made that case.
Minute left. Let's look nationally. Big picture. I know you've worked on a lot of the Senate races around the country. Didn't go well in most cases. In most of the races you were in. Nothing to do with you. Let's be clear. Yeah. But I saw a CNN poll. 6 out of 10 voters they talked to across the spectrum ranged from disappointed to outright angry about Barack Obama. Yeah. They didn't feel he's done anything, or they didn't feel he's fulfilled his promise. Disappointment. His 6 year. It's always tough for incumbent presidents in these midterm elections. But a really bad night for the president. You got about 30 seconds.
Horrific night for the president. Can't slice it or dice it any other way. Looking at Hispanic Latino vote in a lot of those key Senate districts and whatnot, that was intriguing. How angry Hispanic Latinos were, enough to move 10 to 15% of their community against Democrats because they were mad at the president for not addressing immigration. And I just use that as one example. There were many groups, 35 and under, angry at the president because they actually believed that he could actually make things change in D.C.
All the time we have. Tony Cignoli, thanks so much.
Good show. Thank you.